Hello and welcome back to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest, and by the end we will have learnt something new, and hopefully you will too.
Hooray!
I'm Zak.
I'm Buzz, and we're back in the Tower Studio once again. For a very interesting podcast, because this time we are taking a journey back to Mars. This time it's all about living on Mars.
If you enjoy the Now We Know show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes.
So what we're talking about in this particular episode is we're taking our journey back to the red planet.
Oh yes, we
back
are.
to Mars.
Definitely sciencing again.
Yeah, I love doing a little bit of science, and I love astronomy,
Hadn't guessed.
and I love space travel, and the whole idea that mankind is finally taking those steps that are, you know, taking us on that science fiction journey off-world, possibly to colonise another world. And we discussed this a lot in Life on Mars, an episode. What episode was that?
Oh, that was ages ago. That's gotta be...
I don't know, back in the teens, was it?
It was back in the teens, the early days of the Now We Know show podcast.
Yeah, and that was a really good podcast. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But a NASA mission has just ended in the past few days. And so we're going to be discussing about that and its implications for mankind, humankind, actually going and living on Mars.
But first, it's time for...
Weird and Wonderful!
Yes.
So what have you got for us this week?
Weekly segment.
Yeah,
So, okay, we're sticking with science.
Well, I know I haven't got one, so it must be you.
We're sticking with science,
Are we?
okay?
Okay,
Yeah, I
cool.
mean, okay, take this how you will. But hippopotamuses can become airborne for substantial periods of time, researchers discover.
Ooh, now that's something.
Did you know that?
That's
Hippos can fly.
Something you wouldn't kind of consider that hippopotami can fly. That rhymes.
Well, okay. They can't fly for very long.
Okay.
It's all to do with the study of how they actually move.
I am assuming it's to do with their running speed.
Yes. So when they're running, it's a case that all of their feet leave the floor when they're running.
they're actually-
As opposed to other animals, elephants, rhinos, horses, they all kind of... They trot. They gallop.
So they gallop. So they got like 2 feet on the ground while 2 feet are off the ground.
I'm more concerned with the hippos at this
Yeah,
point.
no, but other four-legged quadrupeds,
Yeah.
they kind of run with
It's
two will be in contact
Yeah.
while the other two aren't.
Yeah.
And so it's
Whereas
But with
hippos,
hippopotami,
if they are proper running for it, they
and
can
shift.
fully
Have you got the
leave
details on their speed?
floor.
I think they.
Okay.
I think they can motor up to about 28 mile an hour, can't they? Something like that.
I'll take your word for that, but this was actually observed in a study of how they move in Yorkshire.
In Yorkshire, of all places. Well, the thing
In
is,
the Flamingo Land Resort.
in Yorkshire.
Yes.
Hey, maybe we should take a visit to Flamingo Land.
This is where it was observed.
We could-
And do you want to know how long they can fly for?
How long?
Approximately at
Okay,
any one time.
Approximately how long? Tell me, Zach. How long can a hippopotamus fly?
This is groundbreaking research, by
Okay,
the way.
how long?
0.3 of a second
Really?
at any one point in time.
One point in time. So it's very well.
It's kind of like me jumping up and down on the floor, isn't it?
kind of, but you know, to think of how much they weigh in at, there must be a ton.
Oh, I haven't got the specifics on.
I mean, obviously,
On
hippopotamus. They're not rhinos.
Oh yeah, of course. God, I don't even know what I'm doing the podcast on.
Well,
Jesus.
that would be really wonderful. A hippopotamus.
A hippopotamus disguised as a rhino.
And they're obviously going to come in. Depending on the size of the hippo,
Yeah.
it's going to be a different weight.
Oh, okay. I've got a weight
Okay.
for a hippo.
Okay.
They are mammals.
We know that.
All right.
Well, they're not lizards, are they? They're cold-blooded, and they haven't got feathers. Unless they have developed it, and that's why they can fly.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Okay.
8,000 pounds.
8,000 pounds in weight.
Yeah, I don't think I can lift that.
No, 8,000 pounds in weight. So, but the thing is, I mean, not being funny, hippopotami, I believe, are
Is that the plural?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
hippopotamus or a hippopotami.
Not hippopotamuses.
No, not sussises.
Now you're learning stuff on the Now We Know Show podcast.
It's hippopotami.
Who thought you could put hippos and Mars in the same podcast?
But anyway, I believe that they are the most dangerous animal
On the planet.
On the planet when it comes to how many people.
Yeah,
they kill a
you
year.
get scared of great white sharks. No. You should be
tigers.
You should be scared of the hippo from Madagascar, man.
Yeah, hippos. The crushing power of their jaws, but what they do is they're so territorial because obviously you imagine they're quite sluggish and they spend their time in the water and things.
Yeah,
but they can shift, and they're very
incredible speeds.
Very territorial, and if they do catch somebody, what they don't do is they don't eat people. Yeah, so a great white shark, if they did attack, or any shark attacked, it would attack because it's going to eat. Yeah. A tiger, a lion, even bears and things will eat humans. You know? So, but a hippopotamus, not interested.
Yeah.
All they will do is they will just bust you up.
Bad.
Yeah, once them jaws have got you, the crushing power is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they do. They kill more people than any other animal on the planet. Yearly, yeah.
I don't have the specifics on that to hand.
Not only do they kill people, but now we know they can fly at you.
It's going to be like something out of The Boys, isn't it?
That is, God, this is really, very weird.
Don't give a hippo
don't piss off a hippopotamus.
Superpowers.
Yeah, don't piss off a hippopotamus because that's going to be the last thing you see.
You do. And you don't want to be sat
Kind
on.
of reminds me of it's at the beginning of not Jumanji. What was that other thing with the Rock in it?
Jumanji.
It is. Oh no, it's a new Jumanji, isn't it?
The new Jumanji.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
A hippopotamus comes out and grabs Jack Black.
Yeah.
That's
oh my god!
Yes. That's hilarious. That was. Anyway, back on to what we were doing.
Yeah.
So we did all about the possibilities of how we're going to get off to first the moon and then to Mars. Might touch upon that a little bit in this particular podcast.
Yes.
But I think it was Saturday past. Okay, so only last weekend, a project run by NASA finished. Okay, and this project is called the CHAPEA project. CHAPEA. Basically, CHAPEA stands for Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analog Mission.
CHAPEA.
CHAPEA. Yes, CHAPEA. Okay, I'll say that again. It's the Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analog Mission.
There we are.
Okay, so they had 4 crew members. If I go to my notes, okay, go to my notes. Okay, we have the mission commander is Kelly Haston. We've got Ross Brockwell, who was the flight engineer.
Cool.
Ansa Solaris or Celaru, she was the science officer, and sorry.
Sounds like something out of Star Trek now, doesn't it?
And Nathan Jones, the medical officer. He was Bones. Okay, so you got four of these highly trained NASA astronauts basically volunteered and were chosen to go into a 3D printed Mars prototype habitation.
So this was on Earth?
Yes, that's correct. The habitat known as Mars Dune Alpha.
Mars Dune Alpha.
Mars Dune Alpha. The location is the Johnson Space Center in Houston.
Oh, okay.
And it's basically a replica of a realistic 3D printed Mars habitat.
Now, that's the thing. We've talked about this in previous podcasts, especially when it comes to the moon bases and all the different possibilities there of actually putting a permanent base on the moon. And it was the thing that kept coming up, was this 3D printed
and they've been, as far as
technology.
As far as I'm aware, they've been really making great advances in that.
Exactly. Well, just refer to our 3D printing podcast we did with Liam. That has come on leaps and bounds.
I believe we spoke to Liam recently, and Liam was saying that things in the 3D printing world have, since we did that podcast, have come on so far. He wants to come back to do an update because things have changed so much.
Just speaking with my experience with 3D printing, I haven't actually done anything myself, but a couple of weeks ago I went to a Comic-Con, and they've got these incredibly detailed, articulated, figures, lizards, dinosaurs, you name it.
Yeah, but that's something that people are now producing.
But they are printing them like that. They are printing them with the articulation. It's not fitted together or anything. I find that absolutely fascinating.
I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I saw that with some chainmail, or basically mail. Chainmail being the Victorian terminology for it.
Now you know.
Mail shirts, as that you would wear under your armour, or just over the top, like if you were Normans and you had mail shirts and trousers and everything else. But they print the 3D mail, and it all moves
together. Yeah,
it's not stuck together.
I know.
And so, how do they do that?
How? What?
This is crazy. And they can do that at 3D. And you think with the Weta Workshop, when they were doing the mail for Lord of the Rings, which was what, 20...
That's a bit sad.
20 years ago?
Yeah, it would be nearly... they were filming it at the turn of the century, weren't they?
They were basically cutting plastic pipe. Literally thousands upon thousands of little slivers of plastic pipe, splitting them and linking them all together by hand. Now they can 3D print armour like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Crazy. Anyway, so...
going back to
the CHAPEA mission.
Yeah, the CHAPEA mission.
The CHAPEA mission. So the whole idea of this was to take volunteers and to take them into this habitat, and
in Houston,
but and the habitat is 1,700 square feet. Okay.
Wow.
So that's it's got sort of work areas in it, which would be sort of laboratory areas. It would have a hydroponic area for growing plants, and then obviously it would have communal area, and then your own sort of like private quarters. So you've got this, and you've got 4 people there living for 1 year. And of course, what's happening in that environment, and they're completely cut off from outside community.
And this is what happened with the CHAPEA mission.
So what they had to do was to basically replicate as best they could what it would be like if they had arrived on Mars. Once they went through the door and the airlock was sealed, that was it. You are now not on Earth, you're on Mars. Okay? Wow. And what they did...
That's like the ultimate escape room, isn't it?
Well, I think it's absolutely fascinating. And to be honest with you, I really would love to give that a go.
An escape room on Mars?
No, to live in this situation, because what you have to realise is they were probably they were being put through so many different kind of tests that they weren't necessarily realising they were being put through at the time. Psychological assessments, health assessments and things. So they had...
Because they were being observed the entire time, undoubtedly.
But it was done in such a way as that they're on Mars. So the time that communications had to go through, so if they needed to communicate with Earth, it would have to take that round trip of how many hours it would take to get that communication to Earth to get an answer back. Okay, because there's no phone calls, no video messaging, things like that.
Yeah.
They had the same sort of conversations.
Yeah, no FaceTimes or anything.
Well, it's the very limited time they had to communicate with their loved ones, for example. But they were obviously given, I say obviously, but they were given experiments and tasks of maintenance. So going back to my notes, we had all the different risks that were involved. So NASA was observing their physical and mental health to see what risks would be involved, and especially with limited nutrition and things like that. So what they had was they've got their MREs, their meals ready to eat. Yeah, and they've got a certain amount of stock of those. But at the same time, they were asked to grow in the hydroponics, to grow salad food so that they could supplement their vitamin intake and everything.
To kind of get rid of that like dependency almost.
Yeah, but to supplement it and to
make it last longer.
Hopefully make it last longer. Now, can you imagine if you've been put into a situation where you find yourself in that habitation, and you're going through the inventory and you say, well, hang on a second, we've got our food, but this is barely enough, or it's close to the edge, or even under what we need. We are going to have to successfully grow, and nobody's going to help you. You've got to successfully grow what extra food you need.
Well, you're bringing this up. This is very reminiscent almost of like a live recreation of The Martian.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Where
like
literally this was the very problem that Matt Damon encountered.
Exactly. So they were
on that film.
They were being forced into doing these kind of situations. So they weren't like there with an endless stock of food that they could just leisurely put their feet up and eat.
Exactly,
They were on limited supplies, had to supplement that as well, which meant they had to grow successfully those other foods that are going to sustain them. And within doing that, think of all the things you've got to, in order to grow the food.
To cultivate it, yeah.
You've got to have the water to do that.
Water, nutrients.
So outside the habitation, from what I gather...
Yeah, you can't just plant something on Mars and expect it to grow.
So outside the habitation was a Mars environment that they'd built to make it look like Mars and everything. So if they were looking out the window, that's what they were
seeing. And we're not going to go into the speculation
of
conspiracies now.
The moon landings or anything. But so when you look out the window and you're in the habitation, what you're seeing is Mars outside. And then they had to do basically Mars walk. So like you do a spacewalk, they had to do EVAs and go out onto the surface of Mars to undertake maintenance of all sorts of different parts of the habitation, so air scrubbers, I assume,
general maintenance,
and then within that they also had things that were, unbeknownst to them, kind of problems involved with that were designed within it to test them.
This is why we brought up escape rooms, man. Jeez.
So
not make it easy for them then.
Kind of like, we need a spare part. Something's gone wrong. What do we do?
Yeah.
How do we get around this? We've got to communicate with Earth about this problem, but we're not going to get an answer back for
this long.
So
is this going to affect?
And we've got to keep this going until we get an answer back, and where they can tell us, that part is located in such and such a place. It's in storeroom B or whatever.
I wonder if living in this kind of artificial environment for such a time, your mind would trick yourself into like literally believing that you are on Mars. I mean, just imagine, for instance, you're in that situation and suddenly, I don't know, you've got a hole in your spacesuit, your helmet's cracked or something, and
that's it. Or you just find you suddenly got limited oxygen.
It would be extremely interesting to see how one would react in that situation.
Yeah, so this whole year mission was augmented to have those kind of things happen. I don't know all, obviously, the ins and outs and details of it yet. They literally only came out last Saturday, but they would have NASA would have engineered those kind of scenarios within the mission.
Yeah, to explore the possibilities.
Because, I mean, you think you're suddenly you're on Mars, you've got limited oxygen, you've got to produce the oxygen, you've got to produce the water, you've got to...
You are away from everything that humanity has ever made.
Yeah.
With whatever you've taken with you.
I was listening. I was listening to an interview with the mission commander Kelly Haston, and she was saying about how I think they get up at like 6 a.m. in the morning, have a team meeting, but all the way through this mission that they were having to like note down all the stuff that they were eating, their body weight measurements, all these, just literally the finest, down to the fine details.
Yeah.
That have their mission for the day, their rota, what they were doing, and then how to go about these things. So it might be they're going out on a surface walk onto Mars and maintenance of different parts of the habitation, and then having to come back in again and go through the decontamination of the spacesuits, and basically finding out that the weight of the spacesuits. Could they move in them? Could they actually undertake the tasks that were required wearing these suits? Because obviously they're going to need to use your information to design new suits and design better suits and
there is that.
Better ways of doing things.
That's the thing. You're not going to get the latest update when you're however many thousands of miles away.
Exactly, and so and then they're coming back in and completing tasks within the actual habitation itself, and then of course they have to exercise. You're in a lower. I mean, obviously we're on Earth, so they, as far as I'm aware, there was no way they can change the gravity, but gravity is less on the surface of Mars, slightly, so obviously they would have to, like when they're in a zero weightless environment in space, they have to do exercise in order to keep the bone
isn't
density up. So they're all going to have to keep their exercise routines going and have their little private time as well.
Well, in that sense,
so
isn't it?
They said every day they were knocking off
preparing for the weightlessness of space. Like a lot of like satellite and astronaut training when it comes to satellites and things was actually conducted underwater.
Yeah, they do that because that does on Earth. That's probably about apart from the planes where they get that moment of 0 G, where they take it up on a high parabola, and where they fly up and then they suddenly go into a drop, and you get that. I don't know. I think it's only a minute, is it, or something like that, where you get this moment of weightlessness. Otherwise, yes, you got to do all your practice underwater because that's the only other kind of weightless environment you got. Because you can get weightless depending on the kind of balance it out. Like if you're diving, you have a weight belt, so you can get that neutral buoyancy, you know. So and I just find the whole mission really fascinating. That you've got 4 people there, and they've had to live in close contact with each other, with probably psychological ups and downs, for 1 year, and all the time delays of communication back to Earth, and then being pressured by different scenarios occurring, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, of course, that would be the only true way to test it.
Yeah, so they could probably engineer things to go wrong. I'm sure I read in one article where they're looking for like a spare part, and the spare part is there, but the spare part has simply basically been miscatalogued into a different storage box somewhere. Yeah, and so they can't find what they need, so they have to communicate with Earth and then wait for that to come back. But if that's a critical part,
I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's putting them under stress. It's putting them under pressure.
But of course, seeing the reaction.
Of course, over that year, there could well be actual, mechanical failure of parts and things that aren't designed as part of the test, but they could actually go wrong.
Exactly.
Because you are testing all this stuff out. So this mission is actually one of 3. So I believe what they've literally just put a call out now for NASA have now put a call out for new applicants for the second analog Mars mission, which will be scheduled to kick off in spring 2025.
Well, I suppose that brings up the discussion of what qualifications would you need to apply for that?
Well, I think you've got to be probably
a proper astronaut.
You've got to be an astronaut.
Damn.
You've got to be, completely sort of leading your field. Most astronauts have to be, I don't think it's just bilingual. I think they have to be multilingual because going like up to the International Space Station, a lot of, I don't know how things sit with Russia at the moment, but there was a time when obviously Russia was using their space rockets to get people up to the space station. That's kind of changed now because you've got New Horizons doing that. But you needed to be able to communicate with your fellow personnel, but also lots of the equipment, instructions, and it's all written in Russian and written in different languages.
Yeah.
So you had all that to deal with. So you've got whatever your.
I think that would be my major downfall being an astronaut.
So you've got whatever your
particular. As we start all learning Esperanto.
Yeah, Esperanto. So you've got your particular field of expertise, is what I'm trying to say, but you have to be so much more because these people are the pioneers. I mean, it really is just
an incredibly.
You're getting from the surface of planet Earth up to using the Artemis project, which is obviously at the moment going ahead, full guns blazing. We've already had the Orion module, which has gone round the moon and back successfully to Earth with an unmanned mission, and they will shortly, I believe, they'll be doing their first manned mission. So they'll be sending
really exciting,
sending astronauts around the moon and back to Earth, and then we need to get the lunar orbiter in, which is a space station which will go around the moon, which we've spoken about before. And I know that obviously SpaceX are developing. That's why we've had all those launches recently of the SpaceX.
Yeah, with those rockets that can re-land themselves. And
Re-land
everything.
themselves because
That's
they're building a lander that will be basically shuttling the astronauts from the moon orbiting station down to the surface of the moon. Obviously, there is where they're going to be building probably the prototype habitation, like the Dune habitation module, which they've been having this project in, the CHAPEA project. So that's got to be built on the moon's surface. So first mission is to get people there, and I know NASA wanted to do the first female astronaut to be the first female on the moon, first person of colour on the moon, and first, I think they've got international partner astronaut as well on the moon. They want to do all this stuff. This is all part of the bigger mission, which these CHAPEA missions are undertaking to find out what it's going to take physically and mentally to get people to Mars and to be on Mars. That is just crazy thinking, because you've got to be in that environment and there is no going back. You've got to hope everything works
all the
way from the surface of the planet to the moon, and then the launch off from the moon to Mars, and then the landing on Mars, and then entering that habitation on the surface of Mars.
Yeah.
And then hoping that you're going to be able to make the return journey. Because there are people out there that are signing up for one-way tickets to Mars.
I think you mentioned that before.
That they are more than happy to go out to Mars and never come back, because they want to be the pioneers, that their names go down in history. But that might be the case, but you've still got to assess these individuals to make sure a person can say, "Oh yeah, I can do that."
It's not a lottery, is it?
I don't know whether this is a good example, but it is an example, and you'll get what I mean. If you've ever seen that program called Naked and Afraid.
Okay. I thought you were going to bring up When Worlds Collide for a second.
No.
I've got that over there.
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting because when Worlds Collide, the movie, if you see that last sequence where they've landed on that planet or moon that's following that other planet, there is in the background, or there's kind of like,
give us a second,
alien. Oh, he's moving. He's going across the studio
for those YouTube viewers.
I'll just entertain you here while he's off. He's back again.
There you go. Okay. When Worlds Collide on DVD.
For those listening, he's holding the DVD in his hand. It's an absolute classic movie, and
I loved it. I thought it was great.
I love the miniatures.
It would be a great double feature with War of the Worlds.
Yeah, but the interesting thing with this one is you see the design of the alien world, and there is some alien architecture.
Yeah, there is.
Which leads you to think...
so true.
But
have you considered this, guys? Yeah. Have you considered that there might be little green blob people who are going to want to eat you?
I don't know about that. But
there wasn't a sequel. I'm not saying that there was a no.
No, but going back to my Naked and Afraid analogy, for those people that haven't seen Naked and Afraid, that's a survival show. And they choose people that are happy to basically, the clues in the title, to be stripped naked, and they have a bag with one survival item in it, and there's usually got two. They've got a lady and a gent, and they've never met each other before, and they might have a machete, and the other person's got a ferro rod or fire starter.
Yeah.
And they are sent off to lots of different places, tropical places, tropical islands, might be, Canadian
the Amazon,
deserts, Africa, whatever. And they have to deal with so many different things.
Oh, yeah.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because if you've seen this show, at the beginning they kind of give a breakdown of each of the individuals, and they say, "Oh, yeah, this person
strengths
is
and weaknesses,
ex-military, expert in survival training. They hunt because, of course, a lot of people in America, for our American listeners, you guys over there can go hunting. You can get hunting licenses and go hunting. In the UK, we don't have that. There is no hunting in the UK." Such we cull animals like deer when they need to be culled, but hunting exactly not.
It's probably I think it's probably more frowned upon.
It is frowned upon
in the UK
here because we've basically in the past we've shot everything that used to live here.
There isn't anything to hunt.
There's nothing to hunt unless you want to hunt a badger or something.
Squirrel.
Squirrel. So apart from that, but to go hunting isn't part of our culture. That's what I'm saying.
No, it's very much kind of being outdated, hasn't it?
Whereas in somewhere like the States or countries in Europe and places like that, or in the Far East,
it can be perfectly normal.
Hunting is perfectly normal. I'd say probably the nearest you get to hunting in the UK is spearfishing, coastal in the sea, because that's legal.
Yeah, that's true.
You can get your harpoon and go spearfishing. Yeah. So, but anyway, so they get their rating. And they are an expert in this, an expert in that. And,
it's PSR, isn't it?
And they give them a PSR, which, do you remember what that
Personal survival rating.
Yeah, personal survival rating. And that, usually at the beginning of the show, they're usually ruffling around sort of like 6.5, 7.2 personal survival rating. And they've got all these skills, haven't they? Mm-hmm. And they get into that environment, and they've got to survive for 28 days. So not a
21.
Year. Is it 20? Well, so I think it varies.
It does vary. Sometimes it's up to like 40.
Okay, so they go into that environment, and then within 24 hours, they're arguing. You know, within 48 hours, they've been bitten the hell out of by bugs.
They've had enough.
Yeah, then like it's day 3, and they've hardly drunk any water.
Yeah, because they
haven't been able to boil anything because they can't get a fire started in order to sterilise the water, and then they get so desperate they start drinking it, and then they get diarrhea, and it all goes to pot. So the point is, it doesn't matter if somebody says, "Do you know what? Yes, I can quite happily go to Mars and never come back." But can they? That's the thing. Can they? Just like those people say.
I see what you mean now.
I can go and survive for 28 days or 21 days or whatever in the jungle, and then it goes totally wrong.
Yeah, it's not like there's like a test for it, really, is there?
So these, somebody like NASA has really got to put these individuals really right. They've got to go through the ringer.
The ringer, yeah.
Totally, because they can't have somebody halfway between the moon and Mars in a spaceship suddenly saying, "I've got second thoughts. You know, I'm having a breakdown. I want to go. I want to go back." You know,
sorry.
You know, or getting to Mars and then 1 month into the mission, the same happening.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I can't handle this.
You've got to be your focus has got to be 100% on that mission.
Yeah.
And if it isn't, then you're out.
And I think that is when you just stop.
That's an incredible
When you stop for a moment, you think about that. I mean, the amount of training the astronauts go through just to go to the International Space Station.
Yeah.
Now, I'm saying that because they've got so much. They're pioneers, just like the old pioneers when they started to, cross America and find their way from the, east coast to the west coast and get through the mountains and the forests and everything. And they'd never been that way before. They had to learn how to get around problems and things. And these are the pioneers striking out for the moon and striking out for Mars. People will follow in their footsteps that won't need that training. People are now already starting to take the those commercial flights just into low Earth orbit, just to get into space.
Virgin Galactic and things like that.
You've got Virgin Galactic,
Blue Origin.
Blue Origin, thank you.
I know science, me.
You know science. But when you get your mind behind what these missions are going to take, I think it's absolutely fantastic and fascinating where you've got these people in that kind of environment, even though it is on Earth, but you put them through that psychological... And it's not just the psychology, but it's their health as well. Because you might have somebody who gets ill, seriously ill, and you've got to be able to deal with that. You might have somebody who injures themselves badly, an accident happens, and you've got to rely on that medical officer to do that. But that's when we were talking earlier about being multi-skilled. Because what if your medical officer has an accident, badly damages their hand, and needs some kind of operation on their hand, but they can't do it themselves.
Of course, yeah.
They can maybe guide one of the others through it, but they're going to have to at least have some kind of experience.
Yeah.
And not be squeamish about it. So you can't be there and have 3 other people go, "Oh God, no!
Oh no, I'm vegan.
Oh no, I'm vegan.
I'm vegan. I can't do it.
I can't do that. The sight of blood. Oh no, I'll pass out."
That'd be a thing. First vegan on the Mars.
No, well, let's not bash the vegans here. Everybody's entitled to their.
Anyone is welcome to come on the podcast and explain the intricacies of veganism if they want. But I'm not sure we're gonna have any takers.
Yeah. Anyway, so. this leads me to the question. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're talking about this fantastic mission, the CHAPEA mission that's just ended. They got the second one's going to start next year, and then there'll be a third one after that. So that kind of leads me to ask you, and we could probably ask this question to both of us: would you go to Mars? So, how do you feel about it, Zach?
Well, okay, so I love my film and sci-fi references. Okay, another good example. Obviously, we brought up When Worlds Collide.
Yep.
But another example of this is actually from something close to our hearts, and that is obviously Doctor Who.
Okay.
Which episode am I talking about?
That'd be the Waters of Mars.
No, I'm talking about Invasion of the Dinosaurs, where they are literally doing something along the lines of this CHAPEA mission.
Of course, yeah.
Where they trick like a select group of people to this kind of underground bunker thing, and they give the impression that they are going off.
Yeah, they basically
to a new planet.
Have persuaded everybody that they are going.
They are the chosen,
and they are going to this new planet,
this new world, to kind of start again.
The whole premise is that they are meant to be taking them back in time, aren't they?
Yeah, they're literally gonna
go back,
turn the world backwards through time.
So they go back to the beginning of mankind, and then start building mankind up and changing the whole future.
But obviously, these time experiments is where the dinosaurs come in. But that's not the point. It's the fact that they have these kind of artificial environments that psychologically affect these people so much that they are believing 100% that they are on a spaceship.
Yeah, when they're not actually.
When they're not actually on a spaceship.
Yeah, I remember that one. That's good.
Anyway, so to your question,
yeah,
I just had to bring that up. Would I? Oh, okay, let's break this down more specifically. Would I go and do a thing like that, or would I? Or is this the Mars question?
Well,
am I going to go to Mars?
I think the question really would be. I'd pretty much say that very few people, and certainly not you, would say, I'll go to Mars and be happy to go to Mars and never come back. Well, it's you could get a return ticket. Okay. So if you knew you could go to Mars and come back, would you do it? Yeah, I mean, obviously, you can't remove all the risks that are involved. Yeah. Everything else.
It's a tough question. It's a tough question.
I mean, there's some people that don't even like the idea of flying on a plane to a different country.
Well, there's that.
And I know you're not too keen on flying.
Well, I don't know where everyone seems. I've just pointed out the fact that planes are pretty much designed. If they're going to crash, they are designed to pretty much kill you dead. And somehow that has translated to me not liking planes.
You have mentioned about them being very thin aluminium filled with explosive fuel,
There's that as well. Okay. I'm not doing myself a service here on the whole plane thing, but hypothetically, I would be extremely lucky if I was even given the opportunity to go to Mars, and I feel that if I was presented with that choice firsthand, you're I don't know, the leader of NASA comes to my door and says, "We have chosen you."
We need somebody who's not a scientist,
who's determined, who's
strong,
good healthy, good survival skills, whatever. I've been chosen by the people in charge. To my face, would you go? In that instance, I would probably feel quite humbled that they would have chosen me to do that, and I would probably, in that instance, say yes. But it would be the two minds of whether or not I'd actually want to.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because, obviously, there's always going to be some kind of apprehension there.
Okay.
And
okay.
If this was straight off the bat, you're going to Mars tomorrow, I'm going to be like, what?
So, do you think it's really a case of you'd have to get space travel down to the equivalent of plane travel as it is on the Earth at the moment? That if it's jumping on a plane to fly to the Mediterranean,
or even
for a holiday, if space travel was as normal as that, then you probably wouldn't give it a second thought.
Even to the extent of I need to jump on the train and get to London or whatever and back. That's trains are a bit crap, but that kind of, if it was within that notion of I can just go and do it, I could book a ticket to Mars, get your ass to Mars. Then if it were in that scenario, I don't think I would be having the same kind of
trepidation.
process in my brain. I think it would just be I'm going to Mars. Great, let's go.
But as is at the moment,
again, for this, it's very much the few are gonna go there at this point in time. Anyway, would I be one of these pioneers? It's a tough one. It's a tough one because I've got all my cool stuff here. There is that. I've got my family, of course.
I wondered when the family was going to come into it. I must admit.
Oh, yeah, come on! I've got cool stuff as well. I'm joking, but yeah, well, okay. If I was going to Mars, I would pretty much, within my contract, it'd have to be you'd have to come too.
Right, well,
Mum can come if she has to.
Everybody's going. The whole family's going.
Yeah, and the cats.
No, we don't take the cats to Mars. I'm not having Teddy going to Mars. He drives me mad anyway.
But he's your rimmer. He's your rimmer.
Yeah, you keep me sane by driving me insane. Okay, you can ask me the same question?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
If
I was asked
you were asked to go to Mars,
yep.
Would you go?
No.
Okay.
Okay. It did take me, and I think it's a question I have to answer with a complete no. But if you asked 20-year-old, 25-year-old Buzz, then it would have been a different answer.
That's an interesting comparison.
You see? And I think for me now, my bond with my family, with you, I just couldn't sort of like stretch those bonds across such a huge, vacuum of space. Be so far away.
Heck, it's hard enough half the country away or whatever. But we're not going to go into that.
I would have such a deep-rooted fear that if I said yes, and that was the last I saw of my family, I wouldn't be able to...
I would very much agree with you.
But when I was a young man and I wasn't married, I hadn't got a son.
That age of rebellion.
So I think if you find people that aren't attached to anybody,
it's very much going to be on a person basis, isn't it?
But I would also say that an individual, although if you find an individual who perhaps hasn't got an attachment to family, I mean, let's just say you had somebody of all the right scientific and practical and physical experience to be said person, but they themselves maybe had a tragic moment in their life and lost their parents, and they're not married and they've got no siblings, or if they have, they never see them or something like that. So they've got no, I'm just trying to work out a way of saying they've got no kind of connection, but they would still have to be able to get on with other people. So a person can,
you would essentially have to,
a person could tick all the right boxes to say this is James Bond. They were orphaned as a child. They've got all the skills. They can do all this. That's fine. On paper, they can do all the engineering requirements. They can do all the IT requirements. They can do all the scientific stuff that requires it. They're physically fit. They've got no anything wrong with them that we can see that's going to develop. But they've still got to go with the rest of the crew. Yeah,
that have also been chosen.
Yeah, and so they have to be able to get on with them as well. So. Yeah, I think it's a difficult question.
That would be an incredibly hard selection process.
I'd be interested for our listeners to put in the comments and say, if could you go to Mars? I think if we, I know it might seem,
I think maybe I was overanalyzing that scenario. To be honest,
I think if it was, I know it might seem strange. If somebody asked me, say,
of course, this is a hypothetical, isn't it?
If somebody said to me, money not being an option. You could go up in one of the Blue Origin rockets and just go into the lower Earth orbit to experience seeing the curvature of the Earth, to see the deep void of space and come back to Earth. That would be a definite yes. I'd do that.
Yeah, because you could still see home.
Well, I don't know why. I think yes, and I know it might seem a bit odd, but I might even push it to, if it was a case of going to the moon, maybe. But I suppose it goes back to that thing. If it's tried and tested, tech that's being used that is getting you there, just like flying in a plane, flying in planes do crash, but it is considering the amount of plane flights that happen on a daily basis, that it is meant to be the safest form of transport. That if space travel was basically the same, then you probably would have a second thought about it.
Yeah.
But
it's not there yet, is it?
No, it's not there yet. And I just feel...
So our mindset at this point is essentially... It's on the stepping stones. It's on that wheel of it's going to become outdated, isn't it?
And a mission like CHAPEA is one of the steps on that ladder to getting... I am so looking forward to seeing how these things progress over the coming decade. To actually see humans going back to the moon. And I really hope that in my lifetime, technology dictates that human beings actually do get that mission to Mars. I mean, I don't consider myself I'm near, knocking on the doors of 60, but I think I've got enough life left in me that if humans are going to get to Mars, that I'm still going to be, breathing to actually see that happen.
Yeah.
But I do feel that my roots are now so embedded. with on Earth that I think that would... There's not a lot in this world that scares me, but being torn away from my family when I'm not in control of I would find that would be unsettling.
Nobody likes to be in those situations where you kind of pulled in two directions. You don't know quite where to stand on certain decisions.
I suppose it's a kind of how one has what your personal
outlook on life is, I suppose.
And your personal connections with family, etc. Because I think you really do need to be free and easy. I don't know if I think maybe people that like to travel the world. I don't. I travel the world maybe when I was young, yes, but now I don't think I would want to do that by myself. Well, as you say, I would want to take you along. I would want to take my family along.
When it comes to world travel and things, it is yes, I would like to, but at the current time, it's a very unstable world that we live in, and
this is true.
Logistics wise, I just feel like it's just some kind of maelstrom that you just can't organize by oneself. It has to be kind of done as a team. A team effort. You can't just go, I'm going to go to Peru tomorrow.
I suppose it's because in our family, we are
a unit.
We are a unit, but we're adventurers and explorers. We like to go out and do adventures.
Yes,
but we don't do your package holidays.
No, which a lot of people will probably kind of find quite weird.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would
most people would consider going abroad on one of these package holidays as their experience of this.
Yeah,
is going on this.
If I was to say, I'm going to go off to I don't know, I'm going to go off to Jamaica, or I'm going to go off to the Dominican Republic and swim with sharks and things like that, and it's all laid on because I'm going to a hotel where it's you're going
to a controlled environment.
All set up for me. That kind of holiday has no appeal to me at all.
Well, just working off our own experience, we did one to Tunisia, which was very much that case.
Yeah, that was a one-off. I kind of had my arm twisted that you really got to try an all-inclusive, and not really. I wouldn't do it again. It wasn't.
Well, we haven't.
No, we haven't. I prefer.
I just remember the turtle story, the tortoise story.
The tortoise story.
So I was on a quad bike and I had to carry a tortoise. Maybe a tale for another time.
But you were only 8, maybe something like that.
You're younger than that.
Yeah, younger than that.
This was before Ben Nevis, I reckon.
We won't even get into that. Yeah, that was a very strange holiday, but not a great one. But I suppose when it comes to that, I like to. We organise our expeditions.
Yeah, well, that's where a lot of people would probably not really realise. People would say that their world travel experiences, that would be it. It would be that organised holiday.
Yeah.
Whereas a proper adventure, you are trekking through the Amazon.
You're going up the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu.
Yeah, no tour guides or anything. It's only working off your own wit and
candor. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Yeah.
It's not organised. You know what I'm trying to say.
I know. It's finding that kind of balance.
Balance, isn't it?
And I think that's where we are with the whole idea. It's a very difficult question, actually, that I asked you, would you go to Mars? Because
it's many layered, and I think
it's
to an
kind of
extent I
speculative as well.
over kind of analysed it.
Yeah. But for me, with the way I feel at this time in my life, it was an easy no.
Yeah,
but I could see you're younger and your eager want to explore and things probably has more appeal to do that.
Well, again, I answered it fairly quickly, didn't I?
Yeah.
Well, I was like, if I was suddenly said, again, I'm very conflicted, and by that confliction, is it not then I would be shoehorned into the I'm in the no pile?
You're in the no pile. I think it's very much you're in the no pile.
Yeah, exactly. That would be very much the process that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It would be what makes you the right person for this this thing.
Exactly.
And if there is any doubt at all, it's a no.
It's like our adventures aren't as big as going to Mars, but if we're
working on it.
I know, but if we're off climbing,
yeah,
I know that I've got my wingman with me.
Hello, I'm the wingman.
If we're off canoeing, then I know I've got my wingman with me.
Hello, I'm the wingman.
I'm talking about Tina as well. So we have, you've got support.
Yes.
And support that you trust, and support that you already know if there's an emergency, how everybody's going to react and things like that.
Like falling in a river.
Falling in a river and laughing a lot. Where's Mum gone? Oh, she's under the canoe. I think we better get
Panic? No, I'm joking. We didn't panic at all.
I think I recall lots of laughter. But anyway, so going to Mars, absolutely fantastic. I am enjoying every bit of what's happening in the whole gambit with the Artemis missions, with the CHAPEA mission, with just the development of the technology, watching the SpaceX rockets.
It's all steps on that ladder, isn't it?
Seeing the SpaceX rocket when it was coming, when the flaps were working on its re-entry,
and it was just melting,
and it was like, this is absolutely crazy that
we're
are watching
an image of this.
We're watching this live. We are seeing the plasma bloom around the rocket coming through the Earth's atmosphere. And the thing still landed. Yeah. Still managed to reorientate itself and land.
Somehow.
And you think, and this is crazy. But every time they do one of these, it gets better and better. So there we go. Living on Mars. It might be something that we'll all see in the not too distant future. But they are trying it out already with these analog missions.
Yeah. Again, it's very interesting that obviously that's how one would test it. I never really would have considered it, and to be honest, it hasn't really been advertised that much on the news or anything.
No, that's the thing that got me. There was a little bit on the news about them coming out the door, finishing the mission, but unless you get onto the NASA website and you look at other news agencies and things,
that's kind of the disproportionality with news, I guess, because at the moment it's all about blooming the Euros.
Well, okay, it's football. In fact, I think
politics.
Isn't there a couple of teams actually that are doing some match this evening?
I have absolutely no idea. I don't know.
I'm being cheeky. I think England are going up against the Dutch.
Oh, okay.
I think
that's probably why Jack's not on the podcast then.
Right. That explains why he turned it down. See, you contacted Jack. Do you want to be on the podcast? And he said no, and you didn't think, oh, I have no idea why. Well, it's a football match. There you
go. We'll see if we can get him in next week.
But say about your news. I mean, obviously in the UK, it's literally we've just been at the election. Everything is about sort of like the honeymoon of Keir Starmer at the moment. Conflict. Even conflicts like the Ukraine kind of in the news get washed over at the moment. So something as trivial, I dare say, a lot of people see this as trivial. Really doesn't get a lot of airtime.
There's always going to be that argument as
but that's where the Now We Know show is to help bring this stuff to the fore for those people that are interested in it. And that's why I said, if I was given the opportunity to go into that kind of environment for a year, I'll do that. So at the moment, they obviously want scientists that can do what needs to be done. But it'd be very interesting if they just had the same setup where they said, okay, we're going to get this to a stage where we are going to actually get paying tourists coming to Mars. We need to test out how those tourists are going to get on living in an environment, a limited environment, limited living space, even on the moon, for a designated length of time before they get their return journey back. And those tourists have got no scientific experience, none of that stuff. They are literally just tourists. How are they going to psychologically?
There's no Wi-Fi signal. Sorry.
How are they going to psychologically cope with it? And obviously, tourists have very, very varied health issues.
Health, so outlook on life, mental stuff.
Exactly. So if they ever did a mission like that, and I'm not talking Big Brother, like that awful program Big Brother. I know people like it, not my thing. But if they just actually want to try, I'd go for that.
You'd go for that?
I'd go for that.
Yeah.
Chuck me in there. I think that would be a great experience.
Oh, wait, I mean, to a certain extent, this is obviously a very glamorized version, but even I'm a celebrity in that sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, because I think there is, you jog my memory, before we finish the podcast, I think there is something like Celebrities on Mars. It's a new show on one of the streaming services where they have got celebrities, supposedly they're meant to be living in a habitat on Mars. But that is what I call a reality show, where it's all augmented to create tension, to create strife, arguments, blah, blah, blah. There would be no show if you put people in an environment like that for 6 months to a year, and then you don't see them. Yeah. And it's the only time you see them is when they come out.
Exactly, yeah.
You know,
well, even to the extent that I obviously described this kind of test as like an escape room type thing, and I dare say there's going to be some spacey themed escape rooms somewhere. That would be quite cool. I would enjoy doing that. I mean, I'll tell a lie, we blooming did a Mars themed escape room on the podcast.
We did,
way back in the day. That was before the original Mars podcast.
That's right. That was varying success, I'd say, that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, it'd be better now that we do the visual element on the YouTube.
Yeah.
But again, I think that the most equatable answer to that question of would I do anything like that, I would certainly do that artificial one. It becomes an easier yes, as opposed to the
actually going off,
to the actual
off-world.
Proper bye-bye, Zak's off to Mars, never see you again.
But I do feel, just to finish off with, I do feel that whoever does go on those missions, you know, I've got to take my hat off to them, because just the idea that you're the first people that are almost like testing out the tech that's getting you there, that's landing you there, and that you're hoping the habitation and everything is going to be working when you're there. Get there. Oh man,
dear me. Yeah,
that is. Oh, you're a bit tired.
A bit tired, yeah.
It's been a long day.
I mean, it's quite late, actually.
It's a bit of a late recording, this one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so about time to finish off then. Okay, so that just leaves us with our weekly bit of Wisdom of the Week. And I was trying to make this kind of fit in with this, so there we go. Wisdom of the Week.
Bestow your wisdom.
Okay. The universe is not only stranger than we imagine, but it is stranger than we can imagine.
Okay, one more time.
Okay. The universe is not only stranger than we imagine, but it's stranger than we can imagine.
Okay, that sounds kind of very Star Trek-y. That gave me a very Star Trek-y vibe.
Well, there you go.
I think that definitely ties into the podcast quite poignantly.
Well,
actually.
There we go. The wisdom of the week. Think about it. You know, we live in an absolutely amazing universe.
And that's the question, I suppose. On the steps on the ladder of space travel and everything, to the moon, to Mars, where would it be next?
There we go. What will we see?
Yeah, exactly. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big cosmic goodbye from Zak.
And that's a big, is there life on Mars? There might be soon. Goodbye from Buzz.
See you in the next one. You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Keep up to date with everything ZWP on Facebook and Instagram, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. And remember to join us on Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access content and exclusive episodes. Bye.